welcome to Askimo TV. We're talking today to Adele Theron. Adele is the founder of The Naked Divorce. The organization helps people deal with the trauma of divorce. Hi Adele, how are you?
Very well, thanks.
Great. Adele, let's talk today about divorce and if a person is ready for divorce. So how do I know if I'm ready to get a divorce?
First things first is you've got to know that you've done absolutely everything to save your marriage. You know, I'm talking therapy, the books, the courses. You've done it all. And it's really got to be a state where both yourself and your partner have reached a point of, you know, no return. And when I say that, I'm saying, you know, if your partner's cheated and they've come back, this is not, just because they've cheated doesn't mean that that's necessarily a grounds for divorce. Trust can be mended. You can get back together after surviving some traumas. You need some counseling, you need some therapy, etc. But you've really got to, when you get to that stage of divorce, you've got to know that you've tried everything and exhausted all options. Do not take divorce lightly. The impact of divorce 10 years down the line is, you know, it has an impact on your life, so you've got to be able to live with that decision. So do not make the choice in an emotional state. Make it when you're calm, peaceful, and you've kind of slept on it, not for several weeks, but for several months, particularly if you've been married for a long time.
And what about children? Should I stay in a marriage for the sake of the children?
That's a tough one, and only the person making that choice actually can, you know whether that is the case or not. I think staying in a marriage purely just for children is never a good idea, because at the end of the day, I have a pretty, you know, clear-cut way of looking at parenting, and, you know, parenting for me is ultimately the job or the role of a parent is to produce a viable adult. I know that sounds incredibly analytical and kind of emotionless, but, you know, your job as a parent is to make sure that your child is going to grow up into an amazing adult and contribute to society and that kind of thing. And you've got to look at what example am I setting? What am I teaching my child by remaining in this marriage? What am I teaching my child by leaving the marriage? So if you leave the marriage too quickly and on an emotional win, what example are you setting? Likewise, if you stay in a marriage that's abusive or, you know, where you're fighting all the time, what relationship model is going to be present for your child? What are they going to think marriage is all about? So you need to live with the consequences no matter what. So again, I think a decision that cannot be made without lots and lots of analysis and, you know, without lots of thought and, you know, consideration for the consequences.
You know, many women are stay-at-home mothers or not the main breadwinner. They're too scared to get a divorce for fear of not coping financially. What would you say to those women?
I think the first thing is to get strategic. So, you know, make yourself a project plan, you know, focus on your value and what it is that you can provide, and take some courses, get trained on things, plan things. So start, even if you know, right, I don't actually have, you know, any qualifications and stuff. Okay, great. Well, what are you good at? If you've been a provider and you've been taking care of children, you're good at caring for children. There's probably a role at a school or in an administrator. I mean, being a mother, you're basically the queen of administration and organization. So do not undervalue these skills and how they can be accessible in other domains and other areas. So you can find yourself a really good life coach, look at how you can reskill, or take some simple courses and qualifications to get yourself into that, you know, into a new job role. Also understand, you know, your rights and talk to a lawyer. Make sure that you've spoken to a lawyer and spoken to your advice bureau in your country to find out what are your rights upon leaving a marriage, particularly if you've been the supporter, your husband has been the breadwinner and been earning all the money, you know, what are your rights, so that you understand as well that you're not necessarily just going to be down and out and on your own and therefore stuck in the marriage that you are in today.
What should I be considering in order to know if I'm ready for divorce?
I think one of the number one things is your finances. You've almost got to have a project plan for the whole thing. Financially, what is your plan? Where are you going to live? How are you going to make money? If your partner decides that they're not going to be financially supportive, can you support things on your own? And if not, can you start making a plan for skilling yourself up to do so? There are so many roles and possibilities and organizations out there. I mean, if you go to elance.com, you go to guru.com, you go to Odesk, these are all websites for freelance people that work from home. And if you think of the skills and things you've developed as a mom or as a dad, if you don't have a job, there's so many things that you can be doing. You got to look at your living situation, how your kid's going to be supported, how you're going to deal with your parenting plan, you know, who's going to have access to the children when. Dealing with being single. How are you going to deal with being single? Are you going to really, just revel in just being on your own for a while, or are you going to get back into dating? Have you healed before you start getting into dating in your next relationship, or you end up just marrying the same person again? Really weighing up the pros and cons and considering all the options, and not basing the decision on a particular factor. Really look at all the factors and then just choose freely. I think these are all the things you need to consider before you move ahead.
What legal considerations should I know or be thinking about when considering divorce?
Well, every country is different. If you have children, I would really recommend that you get a lawyer, no matter what. Do not do divorce, DIY divorce type stuff if you have children. You must make sure you get legal advice in your country. In most countries, joint custody is recommended, where you share the custody, and everyone will recommend that you work it out between you and your soon-to-be ex. Do not try to do the negotiation through lawyers, because they'll try and string it out because they get paid by the hour. So the more negotiation and the more you can kind of handle together or with a mediator, I'm a massive fan of mediation. It's really, really great, and it's not only going to save you money, it's also going to teach yourself and your ex how to communicate and transition your relationship from husband and wife to joint parents in a joint partnership. You're going to be in a relationship with this person forever because of the children. If you don't have children, then I strongly recommend you negotiate the whole thing together, and you can take on one of these do-it-yourself type divorce packages if they're available in your country, or a mediation type approach. The minute you start getting acrimonious and you start letting lawyers do all the negotiations for you, in most cases, whatever financial earnings and financial wealth you have accumulated, it will get destroyed through that process, or a massive amount of it will be destroyed through that process. If you are married in community of property, you do need to consider that half of you do need to split your assets down the line, unless you can negotiate directly with your ex a different arrangement.
And Adele, just a final thing to end off. Is it possible to heal a broken heart?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. The actual physical manifestation of a broken heart, that feeling when literally you feel like someone stabbed your chest and your heart is breaking in half, that's actually just an indication of very high dopamine levels in your bloodstream. And dopamine is just really as a result of high cortisol and adrenaline, and if you leave cortisol and adrenaline over time and you eat too much sugar and drink too much alcohol, the dopamine levels go up, hence heartache. So although bizarrely you're encouraged to, bury your head in lots of ice cream, you go through a breakup. If you want that heartache feeling to go away, just do not eat sugar at all. So physiologically, yes, the feeling goes away. Emotionally, of course, it goes away. But it goes away because you process and understand what has happened in your relationship and in your divorce. If you get yourself to a place where you've applied lots of what I call short-term emotion avoidance tactics, lots of retail therapy, workaholic behavior, every time you feel a heartache, you go out with your friends and you go and drink too much, or you go and sleep with a random stranger, or watch hours of TV. These things are not going to make you feel better in the long term. So healing a broken heart is really about, getting it sorted out at the source.
Thank you, Adele. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
You're welcome.